Hi, how's everybody doing today? It is a very hot day, so I've got a fan on me. I'm at my son's and his air quit working. So it's kind of like been a little bit warm here and in this situation, so I have a fan on me. So if you see my hair blowing wildly, that's the reason. But I've been doing YouTube videos very recently. Like, honestly, I just started a year ago. I'm not very confident yet because I haven't done it enough in order to build my confidence up and get as fancy as everybody else. But I do have a message, and I would love to share some of this stuff with everybody. And I know there's a lot of other people, on these social media, outlets that actually probably cover these same topics, but everybody's experience is different, and I decided to come on and share my experience that I've had with God and the law of attraction, the universe, etc., etc. So in 2017, I was a hairstylist, and if you've seen one of my earlier videos, I think I touched base on, well, actually that was a couple of years ago, one of my first videos, I touched bases on how I lost my job. I worked for a place that did strictly men's haircuts, and I loved my clientele. I loved people, but I lost my job. Anybody that's familiar with the hair industry can be pretty catty at times, but I'm not putting blame on anybody, because I had been talking to God, at that time, and He basically was just moving things around, and sometimes that can be pretty traumatic. So a couple of years ago, so back in, I'm going to say 2017 probably, I think it was 2017, I had lost my job at Big League Haircuts. And at that time in my life, I was trying to discover, who I was. I was probably going through one of my first phases of spiritual enlightenment, because at that time I was trying to touch bases into what I had experienced throughout my life. And I wanted to kind of share that with all of you guys, and then maybe, it could, trigger you to say, yeah, I had that happen, I'm not crazy, or just so you can recognize it if it happens to you. Although it's like a thumbprint, not everybody's is going to be exactly the same, but it can give you a little bit of heads up in case something like this happens to you, and you don't have to be in such shock. So I was working in Big Leagues, and I had been questioning, what it was that was out there other than myself. I never really grew up in it. I went to church as a child, but I never, as an adult, I never went to church. I never attended, any church services. I did, however, go into different types of religions early in my 20s up to my 30s, just trying to see if I fit in. I never felt like I fit in. I even went into the Church of Scientology in 2017, not because I was seeking to join them, but I was just curious, what's this about, So I kind of went in one, very beautifully decorated, but I didn't agree with anything that they, their doctrine. So I'd also heard a lot of conversations about how people were saying that they believed that Jesus was just a character in a story. He was just a character, and He didn't actually walk the earth. And so I was like questioning all that, like, what is it? What is out there? What is the truth? So the funny thing is that in my early 20s, my daughter, she was born in 91. So I want to say it was like 93 when this occurred. I was living in an apartment in Ohio. My mother didn't live far from me, my mother and my father, and I had a dream. And in my dream, I dreamed that I was spending time with Jesus, and we were sitting in my living room floor. I don't know why we was on the floor, but we were sitting in the floor, in the Indian style position, and I don't remember anything about his face. But I remember I could see his hands, I could see his robe, and I could see his feet. And we were having a conversation, and I don't recall the conversation at all. I just remember that I knew that he was getting up to leave, and he stood up, and I'm still sitting on the floor, and I just started crying, and I laid my head on his feet, and I was weeping. And if we all know what weeping is, it's a lot deeper than crying. I was weeping. I had lots of tears falling. I was soaking his feet, and I was saying, please don't leave me. I haven't had enough time with you. And I was begging him to stay. And I remember in my dream that he reached down and he had touched the top of my head. And he said, do not worry, that I will return and I will come and see you again. You will see me again. And he was basically letting me know that it wasn't forever that he was leaving and that he would return. So I woke up from that dream, and that, other than that little sentence that he had said to me at the end, other than the fact that I remember he had a robe on, and I remember his feet and his hands, I remember the biggest thing that stuck out to me was the fact that, he smelled like every flower in creation. It was absolutely the most beautiful smell I'd ever smelled. It was like if you took every flower on this planet and put it all in one room and just walked in. It was amazing, and it was beautiful. And I shared that, dream with my mother, and, she just told me to be careful. And I had basically put that dream into the back of my mind and continued on with my life. So fast forward to me working at Big Leagues, and I was actually, going through this time period where I was kind of questioning, this whole theory that Jesus, might have just been a character in a story. I don't know why I even entertained it, but in that time in my life, I was finding myself to be less happy. I was going through certain things where I was realizing that, the material things around me, my job, the boyfriend I had at that time was not fulfilling me, and I wanted more, and I wanted answers. So fast forward to Big Leagues again, and I had a client come in. It was a man. And I had heard a story maybe a week or two before about this preacher that had a near-death experience, and how he was actually an atheist when he had that. And coming out of that experience, he is now a preacher, and he lives in a small town in Kentucky. And so I had heard that story. Someone had told me that. And so this guy came in, and I don't know how we got on the subject of near-death experiences, but I was sharing with him the story that this person had shared with me, because I was so interested in it. And I was like, this is pretty surreal, So I'm talking to this guy, and out of nowhere, like I said, I'd never met this man before. I did not know him. I was not familiar with him. He looked at me and said, I had a near-death experience. I had one like 8 years ago. And I'm like, oh, really? I want to hear your story, This is so cool. And he goes, yeah, I had surgery, and 8 years ago I had surgery, and I died on the operating table. I was told I died, and they had to bring me back. And he said, I do know that I went someplace out of my body. I seen myself leave my body, and I went to some place. And he said, while I was there, I know that Jesus was there. And although I cannot remember what he looked like, I do remember one thing. He smelled like every flower in creation. I was floored. I started crying in front of this man. I didn't even know this man, and everybody in the salon's looking at me, and I'm crying, and I'm overwhelmed, and I was like, whoa, this confirmed my question, as if Jesus had put this man in my life in order to confirm that what I'd experienced in my early 20s was actually facts. So, I shared with him. I said, I cannot believe you said that. And I told him my dream. And we sat there and we had a moment. And then he left. I never seen that man after that. I didn't see him anymore after that. I never, did his hair again after that. And of course, I lost my job, soon after that. So it was a lot going on at that time. So this started me on a quest to find God and to see what it was that I had to do in my life and my purpose. And so moving forward, I have a friend, and me and her would go out, sometimes once a month, sometimes 2 times a month. We'd get on these little kicks, and we'd get dressed up, and we'd go out to the club, and we'd, listen to music, have drinks, dance, whatever. And she'd ask me if I wanted to go out. And I was like, sure, I had nothing else planned, nothing else going on. So I was jumping in she told me, she always took longer to get ready than me, so I always procrastinate to the last minute. So I had jumped into the shower to get ready to, go out and have fun with my friend. And as I was in the shower, I felt this energy, this presence, and it entered into the top of my head, and I could feel it go through the top of my head, and it went all the way to the tip of my toes and back up again. And it was so powerful that it overwhelmed me, and it took me, I actually went to my knees and started crying. I'm like, whoa. And I knew who it was. I knew what it was. I didn't question it. I just was like, whoa. And it was like I felt something telling me that it was time for me to start. And I was absolutely terrified, because I thought, I'm not ready for anything to start. I'm trying to get, things together with my life. And so I went into the bedroom. This happened like maybe a week before I lost my job. So I went into the bedroom. I'm sitting there in my towel, and I called my friend up, and I said, hey, she said, hey, Chickadoo, I'm almost ready, woo, woo, woo. And I said, I can't go out tonight. And she goes, what? And I said, I'm sorry. And she goes, what's going on? I could not explain to her what had just happened to me. I didn't know what to say. So I didn't say anything. I just told her I couldn't go out. And, I'm pretty sure that she was very upset, because I didn't elaborate on anything. I couldn't. There was nothing I could say about that. There was no way of me explaining what just happened to me. So I got off the phone with her, and I got dressed and, put my gown on, and I decided I was going to bed, because I felt like I was drained of energy. I was really, trying to figure out what was going on with me, and I couldn't explain what had just happened to me in the shower. So I was just like overwhelmed. So I had went to bed, and I laid down, and I could hear this voice, calling to me and telling me, that it was time for me to start moving in this purpose. And I was like, what are you talking about? I'm nobody. I'm a hairstylist. I cannot fulfill any purpose. I don't have what you think I've got. It's not me. You're calling to the wrong person, obviously, because I'm not who you want. I'm not anywhere near in a position to do any of that stuff. And as I laid there, it was almost like they say you have to die in order to have your life pass before your eyes. I assure you that you do not have to die or even come close to death. And so I laid there, and as I cried, and I was having this mental conversation with who I now know as God, I'm like, no, it's not me. And my life passed before my eyes, and I had all these times, all these different occasions where God showed me that He was there, and that He had kept me from harm, and how many times He had showed up in my life. And it was so overwhelming that it blew me away, because before this had happened, what had occurred to me was coincidence, just pure sheer luck. Pretty cool stuff, but it never was anything that I had connected to God Himself. It was just, to me, like earthly experiences that had just happened. So I wanted to share a few of those experiences with everybody, because I want people to get an idea of what I'm talking about. So I had, when I was born, I was told by my grandmother and my mom that I was born with a veil over my eyes, or what they medically call a caul. C-A-U-L, so you can research that. I never thought I was special. I'm not saying I'm special now, but I thought, okay, cool, I was born with a caul over my eyes. I don't know what that means. I never researched it. I never looked it up, never thought anything about it. But at this point, when this happened, I did look it up, and it's a marking that it's like 1 in thousands of births have this. It's not a common thing. And it's meant to say that you have a gift of insight and stuff like that. But moving forward, as a child, I used to have these very, people would call night terrors, which I've only met one other person, and she is a lady in a church group that I don't attend it anymore since the COVID, but we used to get together, and she has shared with me that when she was a child, she had similar things happen, that these was evil demonic dreams. And they were like real. You know, I would wake up and I would be terrified, and I would see these demonic things going on in my room, and I couldn't get any peace until I went into my mother's room, and I would sleep on her floor because, you know, I'd sneak in my mom and dad's room and sleep on the floor. So, you know, as I gotten older, I quit having those occurrences, but I always felt that the spiritual realm was always right over my shoulder. I always felt a presence. I was always, you know, able to feel the presence of spirits, and I still see them occasionally, but I don't want to elaborate on that because, you know, some people's belief systems may not agree with that, so I'm not going to elaborate with that. But moving forward, I'm 7 years old. My appendix ruptured on a Sunday, and I didn't even go to the hospital till Monday. My fever was through the roof, and I was not able to do anything but lay there. So my dad carried me to the car. Him and my mother took me to the emergency room, and they told me that I was on the brink of death. So God showed me that He'd showed up that time as well, and because they was telling me, my mother at that time, she did share it with me, that with the infection I had, that they would probably have to give me a colostomy bag to use the restroom out of for the rest of my life. But that didn't happen, you know. God brought me back. He showed that to me. He also showed me when I was probably 11 years old, and when we were kids, my father and my mother we moved around a lot. We lived like a life like gypsies. So my dad would travel to different places, and this was in the 70s, or no, this was probably, I was like 10 or 11. So this was either the late 70s or like no later than 81. And we did a lot of traveling to different places for my father to work. So this was one of those times, and you know, we didn't get hotels. We camped at rest areas and things like that. So that's a very unique way to be raised. You know, not, you know, even getting to stay in a hotel room. You know, we would sleep, we would take our blankets, pillows, put them on top of a picnic table, and we'd sleep in these rest areas. And back then you could do that. If you try to do that today, they will definitely tell you you can't do that. You can sleep in your car, but you're not allowed to sleep anywhere on the rest area grounds. But here I am, a child, and I remember I'm laying on this picnic table sleeping, and my family is all around me. The picnic tables weren't that close together, but they were a little bit. And I remember that my uncle and my dad's friend Jimmy were sleeping on the ground. They had made a pallet on the ground. We were really truly like roughing it. And I remember this man, he came by and he kind of shook me, and I got woke up, and this man's standing there, you know, and he's asking me all these questions. He's asking me what my name was, how old I was, if that was my family, where was my mom at. I mean, and I was answering everything. I don't know why I did that, but I did. And apparently something woke my uncle and my dad's friend up, because they jumped up and seen this man standing next to me at this picnic table, and they started chasing him. I asked him who the hell he was, and they started chasing him, and he ran off. I mean, he wasn't doing anything wrong. He would have been like, hey dudes, I was just coming by to see what's going on. You know, I seen this kid laying here. But he didn't. He took off running, and they chased him. And then, you know, they said that they didn't get any sleep the rest of the night. They was afraid he was going to come back. And, because it was just me and my it's like me, two of my sisters and my brother that were out there. And then the smaller kids were in the van with my mom and dad. There just wasn't room for all of us to lay in there. So they had the little kids in there, and they had themselves, which was 3 kids and 2 parents. So it's a pretty small, cramped area. But we moved on. The next morning we pack up, we start, you know, we hit the road again, we start driving, and we came to a rest area. And you know, when you come into the rest areas, they always have the wanted posters, the map of everything that's around, brochures, what have you. And there happened to be a wanted poster. And I looked at that picture and I was like, wait a minute, that's the guy that was talking to me last night. And he was wanted in connection to a kidnapping and a missing child. So I believe that it was his intention to take me. And I don't know why he didn't just snatch me up, why he asked me questions. But I thank God, because I believe that there was angels that night that was protecting me, because otherwise I should have been taken by this man. So I had many, many things that flashed before my eyes, but I'm just going to elaborate on the more important ones. So when my son was a baby, he was born in 98. So he was born in July of 98. So this was probably, I want to say, the fall of 98. So he was still little. And I know I wasn't with his father. His father, it's a big long story with him. I'm not going to talk about that. But moving forward, when my son was a baby, when I had him, I started dating an old friend of mine, someone I knew from my past. And I had this little baby. I think he was like 3 months old when me and him had met. And so we'd been dating a few months, and he became very abusive. And no one knows that about my past, but I had a lot of abuse from men throughout my younger years, all the way up until I was actually, I want to say 30. 30 is when I was no longer in abusive relationships. But so I spent most of my greater half of my life being abused by men. And so I was in another abusive relationship with this guy, and I knew him in the past. I always thought he was a great guy, but I started dating him and he was abusive, and I had a history of being with abusive men, so I was used to it. I accepted it. And I look back at that and I think, what the heck was I doing? But I accepted it, and I thought it was normal for a woman to be with a man and him be abusive. I know now that that is definitely not the truth. But at that time, I accepted it as my truth, and I lived that kind of life. So I had my daughter and my baby, and we was staying, I was living in Kentucky at this point, but we had came over to Ohio because I went over there for a job interview. Me and this man that we're dating, we had a job interview scheduled for a Monday, and we decided to go over there and stay the whole weekend. So we got us a hotel room, and so this was like probably, I don't know if what day this exactly was, so I'm not going to say what day because I do not want to lie about it, but I'd have to research it to give you the exact day, and I don't want to give away the whole plot of the story by saying one thing, so let me just get back to that. So I was with this man, we were in a hotel room, and this was back in the day that we didn't have the key card, we had an actual key, like a house key. And me and the kids were in there, and I had gotten the kids asleep, and I was tired. I wanted to go to bed, and he was across the hotel, because you walk out the door, it went to the outside. So across the parking area, there was another hotel, hotels over there as well, because it was like in a half circle. And he had went over there. I guess he knew someone over there, and he was drinking with these people. And I just basically got up and I went over there to say, hey, here's the key. I'm going to go lay down with the kids. I'm going to lock up. I'm going to give you the key so you can get in. So when you're done, you can come in and lay down and go to sleep. And I went over there to tell him, and the door was open on the couple of hotel rooms. I don't know why. It was fall. They didn't have, I guess people were enjoying the fact that there was a breeze blowing. There were screen doors on these hotel rooms, so bugs wouldn't coming in, but everybody had their doors open, enjoying the cool air. It was naturally cool out this time of year. And so I went over to give him the key, and he was drunk and belligerent. And like always, he became very violent. And he was cursing me out. He was telling me he was going to kill me. He was going to beat me. He was going to do all these things. And I'm trying to, just go in and lay down with my kids. And there was a hotel room next door to the one that he was at. And there was a black man that stepped out. And he had like a Colts jersey on and a white do-rag on his head. And he was accompanied by two other men who were white. And I'm not trying to add race to this story because it doesn't matter what color these men were. I'm just doing this because in case someone wants to do their own, they want to look it up and see if I'm telling the truth, you will definitely see I'm telling the truth. So they stepped out, and this guy, this black man, he intervened, and he's like, hey dude, I don't know what's going on with you two, but I've heard what you're calling her, and that's not necessary. Just he's going on and calling me names in front of him. He's like, man, just let her go in, lay down with her kids. You go in, have your fun, but just let her go in and go to bed with her babies. That's all she wants to do. So he's still making threats, and he's like, look, I'll give you some money just to leave her alone. So he's offering to pay this man to leave me alone. So he pulls out this big wad of cash. He starts counting out money, and Wade that's his name, just kept saying he wanted more and more money. I mean, till this man had probably had, like, at that time it was a lot of money. Today it's not. He had like $500, $100 bills. that he had counted out to give him to leave me alone. He was going to pay him to let me go to bed. And he just continued to call me names, and I was getting upset because I thought, what's going on here? I'm out for sale, you know, what is going on? Because it was kind of like weirded me out a little bit. And he kind of stopped and said, no, I'm going to give him whatever it takes to leave you alone. And since he kept being belligerent and saying that whenever, you know, I'll take that money, and whenever I come in tonight, she's still going to get it. So he's like, you know what? I'm not going to give you nothing. You're going to leave her alone. And the two white guys both had guns on their hips because they had moved, you know, they had jackets on because it was cool. And they moved their jacket out of the way and showed him that, hey, we're carrying guns. And, you know, you need to listen to what this man's saying because this could get ugly. So I'm standing there, you know, and this is going on, this confrontation. And finally, the guys just basically told him to leave, and they, you know, and they threatened him, and he left. He left, just walked away with nothing, no money, no nothing. And the guy made sure I had my key to get back in my, you know, to make sure he couldn't get back in, because, so he walked me over to the rental office, and we knocked on the window, and the lady came to the door, and he said, you know, don't let anybody have a key to that room, because he explained what was going on, and he asked me if I had what I was doing over there, and I told him about the job interview and how I had him with me because I had the two small kids, and we was going to take turns watching them while the other person got interviewed. And he said, well, you know, are you still wanting to go to the interview? And I said, no, I don't. And matter of fact, I'd only paid for, I don't know what night this was. Again, I'm not going to elaborate on the day. But so long story short, I told him that I really wanted to go to my mom's, that I was really, really not wanting to stay there because I was really worried that he would come back and them guys wouldn't be there to save me because, like they had said, they was leaving the next day. So he took, and back then they didn't have, I didn't have a cell phone. There was no cell phones back then. If there was any kind of phones, there might have been car phones, but back then people were not running around with car phones. But he walked me over to a pay phone, and he gave me the change to call because I was broke. I had nothing. I'd spent everything I had to get this hotel room because I wanted to get this job. And he paid for me to call my mother, and it was late at night, and I woke my mother up. I think she was laying down. She might have been sleeping, but I told her what was going on, and I asked her if there was any way her and Dad could come pick me up the next day, me and my kids, and I explained the situation I was in, and she said, sure, we'll be over there tomorrow. Well, after I got off the phone with my mother, this guy was like, look, I want you to take this phone number. If something happens and your parents can't come through, call her. Any place you need to go, she is going to show up for you. And if you won't want to go with your parents, she will even allow you to stay with her. She lives over here in Kentucky, and she could take you to your job interview, but the decision is yours to make. And he gave me more quarters to call my mother or to call her, and he gave me the money that he was going to give him. He gave it to me. He gave me the $500, and he said, I said, oh, no, I don't want your money. He goes, no, take it. He said, use this for your children. He said, use it, you know, do whatever you need to do with it. And I said, well, thank you. And I was crying and I was weeping. And he said, what's your name? And I said, Kimberly. And he goes, well, my name is Ricardo Harris. And I kind of giggled. And I said, that's funny because I'll never forget you because my brother's name is Richard Harris. And we had a moment, and I said, you know, thank you, you know, for helping me. And you're a good guy. And he hugged me, and I felt the sincerity in his voice and the sincerity in his hug. And we shared a moment of him just being a really good guy, and I'll never forget him. So the next day, my parents did come and pick me up, and I went to their house. And I remember what we had for dinner. My mom had made taco salad, and we had dinner together, and afterwards we were sitting around. This is why this is important. This story is very important because I don't remember what day America's Most Wanted comes on, people, but we're sitting there. That's why I didn't elaborate on the days, because I could not remember if that show came on Saturday or Sunday. But I remember we was sitting around the TV and America's Most Wanted came on. I love that show, and we watched it every weekend as a family or by myself. That and Unsolved Mysteries. That was our thing. So we're sitting around, and my mom, she was in the kitchen, and she was probably just doing a few dishes or putting stuff away. I don't know what she was doing. But I'm sitting there watching America's Most Wanted, and this guy that had just saved me the night before, the man that got me away from this abusive man, the man that gave me this money and showed me kindness and basically was my angel. This man saved me, was on America's Most Wanted, and he was on there for murder and robbery. This same man. And when they showed me on TV and they was showing the area that he could be in, I was like, whoa, they're right, because I'd met him in that, in that general vicinity. And I don't know, my mom was like, are you kidding me? Is that real? And I'm like, yeah, Mom, that's him, Ricardo Harris. That's him. So I had put Ricardo Harris in the back of my mind throughout my life. I had not even told anybody the story, Again, I didn't start even looking this man up until I had my spiritual awakening, and I actually decided to look him up online. And I thought, well, I'm going to see how he's doing, because I'm sure he got life in prison, and I'm sure that I need, that he's probably needing a friend, and I need to write him and thank him for saving my life, because he saved my life, guys. This man I was with was highly abusive. Well, guess what? I found out that he did in fact get caught. He did go to prison. I did not turn him in. There's no way I would have, because he was my angel. And I found out that he had died in prison, that he found him dead. He had gotten a life sentence. I think he might have even got the death penalty. But I've seen where also the judge that had sentenced him told him that he didn't even deserve to have the breath that he was breathing, because he was evil and he was equal to Satan himself. And I did put on the blog, which I'm not sure if anybody's even noticed it or even read it, that the story that I'm telling you guys of how this man was my angel, and although he was somebody else's murderer, he was my angel. And that if without him, there's no telling where I would have been. I might have been the one that died, because this man is now in prison for murder because he killed a girl that he was with. And that could have been me. I could have been the one he murdered. So God showed me that. And then God also showed me one time when I was out with, I had a guy, well, actually what started it was I had my kids, and we all went to Lexington, and was staying in a hotel, and I had a couple of friends of mine meet me up there, and they wanted to go out to the club. And so I decided to go out with them. My kids were in a hotel room. They had an adult there. A friend of mine was watching them that was also with us, and she was watching them. So I thought, yeah, I'll go out and have some fun with these guys. Long story short, the guy that I was, with, I was actually, dating him at the time. He was more than just a friend, but I was dating him at the time, and he happened to be stuck up there in Lexington. And he, again, like, I hadn't even escaped abuse. I really hadn't. Because this guy, although he wasn't physically abusive, he demanded that I bring him back to Maysville from Lexington. And I had been drinking, and he wouldn't shut up until I did. And I had been drinking, and I attempted to try to drive, and not, please guys, don't judge me, but I attempted to drive back, and we had two cars, and I was the only one with a driver's license other than my friend in the other car, so I was forced to drive. I had my nephew in the back seat, who was an adult, and this guy, and my kids were all in the other vehicle, but in my car, because there was no room for us all to fit, and I would have had to leave my car. So I was attempting, which I made it home, but by the grace of God, I made it home, because God showed me when I was driving how I fell asleep, passed out at the wheel, and how he woke me up seconds within slamming into the back of a semi. And I was overwhelmed with how God saved me from that, saved me from killing myself and the people that were in the car with me. And then years later, many years later, I had a friend who was in a wheelchair, and he had not been out, since he'd been shot and paralyzed. And so we've been out a few times. I took him to the Funny Bone. I took him and his kids out to dinner, and my sister had invited me out for New Year's Eve, and I invited him because he hadn't been out, and he's in a wheelchair. So if everybody's familiar with that, when you drink and you're in a wheelchair, your body does not metabolize, especially if you're paralyzed, alcohol very well. So we were out, and he was pretty drunk, and he was drinking. He's pretty drunk. I did not drink. I had maybe one drink, and because I knew I was going to drive. So, but I had a good time. He had a good time. But the problem is that I had my brother-in-law help me get him in my car and load his wheelchair up. And I get to his apartment, and I get the wheelchair out, and I'm trying to get him into the wheelchair, and somehow, after I got him in there, he was off balance, and he flipped the whole wheelchair onto the sidewalk, and he fell out onto the ground. He didn't get hurt or anything, but this man weighed at least 200 pounds, and I could not have lifted him. And I was like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I had set the wheelchair upright, and I was trying to figure out how we could get him back into the chair, and he was drunk, and I was not able to lift him. And right as I was getting ready to feel defeated, this car pulls up out of nowhere, and this gentleman jumps out, and he's like 6'4", big buff guy. He just jumps out of the car, walks over to the sidewalk, picks him up, sets him back in the wheelchair, gets back in his car. I mean, this man said nothing to me. I'm like, oh my God, thank you. He said nothing, and he gets back in his car and he leaves. Now, God is good. The universe has showed up for me. Many times God has showed up for me. These are just minor things. These are just some of the stories that God has done. Some of the stories that He showed to me and revealed to me at that moment when I was laying in my bed and I was weeping. He showed me these things. And He continues to show me things. I just want everybody out there to realize that there is a higher power. I happen to call Him God. And I happen to believe and know that Jesus lived a life here on this earth. And He did die on the cross for me. And, you know, everybody has their own belief systems. And I'm not here to point you in the direction of what I believe in. But I want to share these stories of how powerful and how awesome God is to me. And that if you ever have an awakening, and if you're still asking, if God has moved into your life, or the universe has moved through your life and told you that they have a job for you to do, and you're questioning why you, I'm pretty sure that He's going to show you why. He's going to show you that He has protected you and been there for you this whole time. Now, I myself, this is my purpose, is getting on here and making videos. I'm not good at it. I have 7 followers. No one is really watching my videos. But I know that God will allow people to watch my videos that He wants to watch. He wants them, and He will bring people to watch them if that is in His power, and if it's in His purpose for me. So, and Jesus said only 1 in 1,000 and only 2 in 2,000 will have the ears to hear. So that's okay if I only have 7 followers. And I appreciate the 7 that I do have. And none of them have liked my videos. Nobody subscribes to, well, I guess I do have the 7 subscribers. I'm not even sure who they are. They're probably my family members. They're probably, you know, trying to make me feel good about myself. But that's okay. Because I'm not on here for the fans. I'm not on here for the subscribers. I'm on here because God told me this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to tell these stories. And I have many stories. I have many stories. I have many things that has happened to me that is miraculous and is paranormal and it is magical. This is just small things that has happened to me. I'm going to start making more, and I may not be like in a timeline from A to B. I'm going to jump around a little bit and tell these stories. They're not going to be linear, but I want to make sure that I am on here giving the message that I'm supposed to be giving to everybody. That you're not alone. If you feel alone, you're not alone. There is always an angel beside you. God is always there. If you want to believe in Jesus, then you got to know that He is there. He is not taken. You have not had the eyes of God taken off of you for a second, no matter what you've been through. He has always had His eyes on you. Always. And everything that you've been through has been there for a purpose. I have been through hell in a handbag. And my life got flipped totally upside down. I went from being this materialistic woman, worried about my fashion, worried about what I was looking at when I went out to the club, worried about the relationships that weren't benefiting me, the relationships that were soul-sucking. I was more worried about that than I was worried about me. I was always worried about doing all this other stuff. And I had the money. I had the place that was fancy. I had everything. But when God came to me and He told me that I had to get rid of the old things to make way for the new, I did it. Because I was obedient, because I'd never experienced anything like this. And I knew that there was something that was trying to connect with me, something that was trying to push me. And I did lose my job in the process. I did give up my apartment in the process. I did give away all my materialistic things, clothes that had tags on it. I'm not talking about cheap stuff. I'm talking about $1,000 pair of boots. I'm talking about Affliction jeans. I'm talking about, I was shopping at stores that the stars shop at because I felt like that label was what defined me. I thought that my things defined me. I thought having a man, even though they weren't loyal to me, is what defined me. I thought that my hair license is what defined me. But none of those things defined me. Those were all superficial, on the surface. And what I truly was inside of me. It was inside of me, waiting for the moment to give birth to the new me. And although I'm not in the situation that I was then, as far as having the things that I had, I'm okay. Because see, I move in faith. And I know that God has showed me what is to come. The prequel. He has given me, when a movie comes out, they always have the trailer. They always have a movie trailer. So when you're at the movie theater, they have these trailers, and they show you these movie trailers. And they get you excited. You're like, oh yeah, I want to watch that. I'm coming back to watch that. The reason why they show you the trailers is because they want you to be excited about it. Because they're hoping that you'll see this trailer, mark it in your calendar, and look and go see that movie when it comes out. And the trailers are always good. No matter, sometimes the trailers are better than the movie, but most of the time the trailers don't even match up to when you get to watch the movie. You're like, wow, this was better than the trailer. And see, God has done that for me. He has showed me the trailer. I have not had just one trailer, but many trailers. He shows me. When I feel like I'm defeated and I feel like it's never going to happen, He'll show me a trailer. Just like with this COVID, a lot of these movies have been put on the back burner. They keep pushing them out and pushing them out, pushing them out. People are getting frustrated. Some people are giving up and like, you know what, that movie's never going to come out. And they're losing interest. Sometimes I feel like I might lose interest. I might give up. But I know that I can't. Because this isn't about me. It's not. If it was about me, I could probably give up a lot easier. But it's not about me. It's about everybody. It's about all of you. It's about the collective. Because I want you guys to see me at the bottom. So that when I get to the top, you can be like, you know what? She told us this stuff. And look where she's at. And you can do it too. Because I'm not no better than anybody. There is not anybody on this planet or on this earthly plane that cannot accomplish all things through Jesus Christ. All things through the universe. You are one with everything. We are all one with everything. We are not separate, even though we do separate ourselves. We do separate ourselves. But government and politics is not the same thing. God is the true government. The collective is the true government. And it's going to take back control of what belongs to it. And it's going to take control. So all you guys at the bottom who feel like your ship's never going to come in, be patient. And have faith. Have faith. At your lowest, have faith. And remember that you have to talk to the universe. You have to communicate. Be thankful. Gratitude is the most important thing that you can do, is be grateful. Have gratitude in what you have now. Be thankful. Because there are people that would be thankful for the things you have. Even if it's only a meal that you get once a day and you have to go down to the church to get that meal. There's people that can't even make it there. So be thankful that you have two legs to walk on, two legs to stand on. Be thankful if you have a voice. Be thankful if you have eyes. Be thankful if you have ears. Because there's a lot of things that people don't have that they would love to switch places with you. My sister, when she was dying of cancer, she was just like, she was like, Mom, Mom lost her life. Now I'm losing my life to cancer. And there's people out there that are killing themselves. There's people out there who are putting drugs into their body and they're damaging themselves. And all I want is to have that life that they take for granted. So don't take your life for granted. Love everybody. Love people where they are. Don't wait till they get where they're at, where their promises are. Love them at the bottom, because that love is what's going to strive them to do better. To know that no matter what, there is people in this world that believe in them and have faith. Because faith is very important. It's very important. Have faith. Have faith in God. Have faith in the universe. Have faith in each other. And have faith in your own self. Give yourself pep talks every single day. Encourage yourself every day. You can do it. I believe in you. I believe in you. And if you have anything that you've been through that you would love to share, I would love to hear about it. I would love to hear about it. I'm not disconnected. I'm not one of those people that you message and I just read your message and keep it moving. I would love to hear from people. I would love for people to reach out to me. I am willing to share my private information in order to talk with you guys. So we can love each other together and encourage each other together, because this is not about one of us. It's about all of us. It's about all of us being divinely guided and looking the same direction. And I also have a lot of other people that I follow that if you're wanting to hear about these people, I will gladly give you their information and they will also feed into you. We have to feed each other more than just food. If a murderer could save my life, and that's what he did, a murderer, a person who was wanted on America's Most Wanted, then anything is possible. Anything. This is Kimberly Vaughn with Shopping Hungry. I want you guys to know that I'm here to fill you up so that you don't have to be hungry no more. That's what Shopping Hungry is about. It's about going and looking and seeking things to fill you up when you're hungry and you make poor choices. But I'm here to show you that there's other ways to shop where you're hungry no more. And I want to pour into you. And I know that you can pour into me. And we can quench each other's thirst. We can feed each other and we can love each other. I love each and every one of you guys. I am going to jump off of here. I hope everybody has a blessed day. It's the beginning of the week. And if you have any questions, please just reach out. If you need somebody to talk to, I am here. I love you. I will be your friend. Peace out.